What's going on, GameLeapers? It's the Cum, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about 15 champions who are going to be low-key broken in 13.6. Most of these champions, honestly, are just going to be able to abuse the new Nash's Tooth, so if you enjoy attack speed and, getting a bit more ability haste on the item, then this is really the video for you. But of course, we'll talk about other champions who are doing well and flying under the radar that you should probably consider playing in 13.6, and even for the rest of 13.5 as well. But this video, guys, this is fast food still. This is a quarter pounder. This is a Big Mac. This is not something, like a 3-course meal. So if you really do want to improve, if you really want to get that nice healthy meal into you, make sure, I don't know what I'm talking about, by the way, but check out the GameLeap website in the description comment section to actually improve at this game. If you guys play one of these champions with Nash's Tooth, for example, do you really think it's going to help you improve at the game? No, you're still the same player. You're just playing a different champion with maybe a buffed item. That's the only thing that's changing here, not you yourself. So if you actually do want to get that challenger knowledge and become a challenger player permanently, it doesn't matter what happens to the meta, then check out the website links down below. And let's get into the 15 champions who are going to be low-key broken for 13.6. And we're going to start in the top lane, and we have 5 champions. Now, first of all, we have Gwen. Now, Gwen might not benefit that much from Nash's Tooth as other champions. So a champion like Echo, for example, right? Who would really appreciate the ability haste, but that's still the case for Gwen. Just, maybe not as much, right? You're still going to enjoy the ability haste. And I think Gwen at the moment is a really good counter pick in the top lane to a lot of champions you're going to see, especially tanky champions, because you just shred them with the true damage you have. With Nash's as well, it's really good for on hit, right? And once you get something like Riftmaker, you're actually very hard to stop. I actually think Gwen is almost like blind pickable now again. You just have to be really careful against champions like Kennen and Jace, ranged champions who can kind of avoid jumping into you. Jax might be pretty good as well because he can block a lot of your damage. So there are a couple of counter picks you might have to be careful of, but Gwen with the new Nash's Tooth, really good pick. I would just highly recommend guys running something like a 9 in teleport, so you have a lot of kill pressure and you still have map pressure with your amazing split pushing and wave clearing in the mid to late game. Now, another champion who really enjoys split pushing is Kled. But Kled probably enjoys a little bit more team fighting, of course, getting those flanks off of your ultimate. And the reason Kled is here is quite simply because Kled with Eclipse, because they buffed this in terms of the actual passives cooldown. This is really nice for Kled. For sure, a bit like Aatrox, right? You're missing the Omnivamp a little bit, but you are getting ability haste from Eclipse now ever since they did change this. But make sure, guys, you're actually preceding Eclipse with a Ravenous Hydra. You want to get this stacking ASAP. And Tiamat, well, you really need it for wave clear. Otherwise, it's very hard to manage waves in the top lane and shove them out. You'll get frozen on, and the lane is GG. Also, be very careful, guys, of playing Kled into Fiora and Malphite. These two are your 2 big hard counters, especially Fiora, because she can block pretty much everything you throw at her. It's impossible to actually ever go in. Malphite as well because of his armor stacking and because he got buffed, right? He just tanks anything you throw at him. So be careful about Rock Solid. But Kled is here as well with Eclipse and Ravenous Hydra. And in Platinum and above, he's even classified as an S-tier champion. Now, one champion who really does literally fly under the radar is Quinn. And we really see Quinn being picked. And I guess I could put her on each of these videos, right, as low-key broken, because she does do well in terms of win rates, right? Because not many people play her, but when they do play her, they're probably Quinn experts. The point here I'm making is that lots of bruisers are still very good, right? So if you think of champions like maybe Jax, Fiora, all you have to do against these champions is pick Quinn. No one really knows how to deal with this champion in the top lane when they're a melee champion, so it's just awesome to pick her, right? Just great to have in your champion pool. Just be aware, guys, they're maxing your W first on Quinn, even though they did nerf this. I can't remember if it was last season or the season before, but they did nerf this, right, in terms of the attack speed and the bonus movement speed. Max this first, though, because maxing this first means you have more kite and actual just DPS because your stickiness. So make sure you do that instead of maxing your Q. But Quinn in the top lane, whether you're going something like Kraken Slayer into the Blade of the Ruined King, whatever it is you're building, the champion just does very well because of her kit. Now, Silas is the next champion, guys. So if you want to counter one of these tanky top laners you're seeing, so it might be something like a Malphite, it might be maybe a Nara in the top lane because of the ultimate you get. Maybe you see Alistair picked as a support, but we're talking about top lane here. Even against stuff like Ornn, you can do well because Ornn's ultimate is really good. The only issue for Silas, guys, if you pick him in the top lane, and I know I should really be bigging him up here and encouraging you guys to pick him, but the only bad thing is that your early laning phase can be pretty bad against lots of these champions, right? So do be careful about picking Silas into just an AD champion who has a really bad ultimate for you. You are picking Silas as a pure counter pick. Do not blind pick this guy in the top lane. You will wish you'd never been born. But Silas is the first AP champion, and the last AP champion for the top lane is Teemo. And next patch, because Nash's Tooth, the ability haste is getting buffed, this is great for you. When you rush this item and then you get Riftmaker, if you're against some sort of bruisery champion, or you can even get Leandra's Anguish, right, to put those shrooms around the map. You don't really want to get in a fist fight with them. It really depends, right? But Leandra's Anguish Teemo, for Teemo with Nash's Tooth, I think it will actually benefit probably more the Leandra's Anguish build, right? Because the ability haste, this means you can put more shrooms around the top side of the map, or bot side of the map, depending on where you are. But I think Teemo will be even better in 13.6 because of this buff ability haste. He will appreciate this, so the Yordle is in this countdown. Now, moving to the mid lane, we actually kind of mentioned one of these champions in terms of the top lane, but you're just playing this guy in the mid lane. This is Malphite. And the unstoppable force in the mid lane, I'm being legit here by the way, is actually really pickable. But I'd highly recommend once again guys to pick Malphite mid lane against attack damage champions because you're so tanky now because of the buffs I gave you. It's very difficult to even push you out of the mid lane, and your level 6 is so huge, right? Especially in solo queue because lots of people play like carry junglers. Not many people are going to be picking, you know, kind of like those utility support based junglers. But yeah, just remember that your early game isn't the strongest in the world, but if you can pick Malphite into something like maybe a Yasuo or an Aurelia, something like this, all you have to do is press E and you automatically win lane. Now, one champion who is really underrated, he's actually a Rod of Ages abuser, and I'm kind of surprised we don't see this champion more in pro play, especially this is Twisted Fate. Now, lots of matchups in the mid lane for Twisted Fate are going to be difficult, right? You know, just off the top of my head, you've got Fizz, you've got Yasuo who might be difficult, you've got Tristana now as well, very hard. So if you are new to playing Twisted Fate, guys, using your W is key, right? Understand that its cooldown, even though it might be kind of short, around like 7 seconds, it's still very long, okay? So the best way to play Twisted Fate is just to hold on to your W unless you actually, you know, are going for a stun or you're going to like shove a minion wave. Be very careful about using your W and playing up into the enemy champion's face. So be careful of that. But yeah, Twisted Fate with Rod of Ages, and then if you're going something like, I don't know, Rapid Fire Cannon, Lich Bane, which they're buff, right? It really depends, but a bit like Malphite, just think about your team composition a little bit. If you have a jungler, something like a Graves or a very strong jungler, carry jungler, TF is more than happy just giving up his lane and helping out his teammates. Your bot lane might be something as well like a Thresh or Felios. TF works great with these champions because of your pick potential, the multiple routes you can land with your champions. So yeah, think about your team in champ slate before just picking TF as well. Now the final mid laner to think about in 13.6 is Zoe, and Zoe is almost classified, well she is actually, in a lot of elos as an S+ tier champion. Reason for this is because, well, Riot have actually buffed her more than they haven't, and even though the durability meta wasn't really kind to Zoe because you're all about just like putting one champion to sleep and then just piling all the damage onto that champion, right? It's not really the way people are playing League at the moment, especially in pro play, right? But still, the champion, because that is such an effective way of playing the game, is really OP in solo queue. She's very difficult to beat during the laning phase as any champion. Yes, her level 6 might not be like the best thing in the world, and you have to be careful against certain champions, especially like assassins, like Kiana, Zed, Talon, Katarina, right? They will crush you at level 6, so make sure to hold your E and wait for them to go in. But yeah, Zoe in the mid lane, if you want to dominate and take over the game with insane priority, she's a great pick. Now moving into the jungle, we've got two champions here. Both of these are AP champions. The first of these is Diana. Why? Nash's Tooth, ability haste. You're going to enjoy this. If you're going something like Nash's Tooth into Rocket Belt, I just think this is going to be really good for Diana, and that's exactly the same, guys, for Shyvana as well. If you're going something like Nash's Tooth, then into Night Harvester, you're just going to have a field day. I actually still think Shiv is like a pretty good AP jungler. You've just got to be very careful about having weak laners. Like if you have a Soraka Vayne bot lane, you have like some, I don't know, scaling mid laner like Veigar or Rebellion Soul, most of the time, you're not going to be able to get to the mid to late game, which is when you can pop off, right, with your Nashers, with your Night Harvester. So again, be careful about just picking Shyvana if you have really late game champions already locked in. Now, moving down to the bot lane, guys. Now, these two AD carries, you can actually play in the mid lane if you wanted to in 13.6. So the first of these is Kaisa. Why is she on here? Nash's Tooth. And it's actually a really good item for AP Kaisa. You get the attack speed and you get 100 AP. This impacts 2 evolutions, right? So that's really nice. And this will make, yeah, Luden's Tempest, Nash's Tooth, Kaisa even more viable. But just be careful about picking her in the mid lane because, yeah, your laning phase really isn't that great. You've got no escape, so you're vulnerable to ganks, right? Especially against hard CC champions. So yeah, be a little bit careful there. But Kaisa in the mid lane will definitely be better and low-key broken in the right circumstances. Exactly the same for Varus as well. But Varus is just a little bit better during the laning phase, so I think this pick will be better overall. And because you're getting ability haste, this means you can throw out more ultimates and of course more poke. I think Varus might even be picked a lot more in higher elos as well to really get priority and dominate the mid lane with a good early game jungler. But yeah, those are the two AD carries, and you can even play them in the mid lane if you really want to. Now the last role to talk about, guys, of course, is the support role, and if you are enjoying these videos, make sure you let us know by leaving a like down below. And the 3 supports, the first of these, if you want to play like an anti-engage support, then Bel'Veth is amazing. Like, well, pretty much most of these supports are anti-engage because the meta at the moment is really revolving around engage, right? So Bel'Veth, because you love champions who come into you, right? You love it when there's fights that are close quarters. Bel'Veth really loves this, and this is why she's actually picked a lot in higher elos as a support to counter those engages. Now, another champion who would appreciate playing against these champions is Fiddlesticks. Now, you might be like, but Fiddlesticks would really love playing into like, you know, enchantresses because they lack mobility. But the problem with this is that if they have brains, it's pretty difficult to get onto them, right? Because they're playing at range. You want champions to be close, to dive onto your teammates champions, and bang, in you go over the wall as Fiddlesticks. They're so close to you, you fear every single one of them, and GG, you win the game just because you countered those close range champions. The last support, guys, if you don't want to play Bel'Veth or Fiddlesticks, this has got to be Swain. Yes, you can pick Swain in the mid lane, which is why, yeah, even Fiddlesticks and even Bel'Veth, you might think they're going into the jungle. Next minute, they're down in the support role, and it throws people off. Lots of people don't know how to play against these champions, particularly the first two, Bel'Veth and Fiddlesticks, but Swain is just another option you guys have. With all the tanks in the game at the moment as well, and the HP, the engaged supports, right, with their HP, Leandre's Angle Swain is really good right now. But yeah, once again, be careful about just blind picking these champions, because if they do have some sort of range like Xerath, Lux, right, something like this, even Senna might do well, you have to be careful about just picking them like that. But those were the 15 most low-key broken champions, guys, for 13.6. Any questions, let me know in the comment section. And until our next season 13 upload, this has been Eggs. Peace.